right, we're back at the REIQ with the CEO, Antonia Mercarella. Antonia, nice to see you here.
Thanks, Pete.
Good on you. Antonia, lots of talk in the industry around the new Property Occupations Act and assignments of agreements. And I know for those people that are contemplating selling their business or setting it up for sale, the new rules around the assignment of agreements is a real win, I think, for people looking at selling the business. Do you mind walking us through the new rules that relate to the assignments of management agreements?
Sure. So at the moment, under the Property Agents and Motor Dealers Act, all of your appointments, regardless of whether it's a 20A, 21A, 22A, whatever the case might be, all of the appointment forms have a provision that talks about having to get your client's consent to an assignment. And look, that's been the cause of quite a lot of angst, I guess, because what it does is it puts you in a position where on day one, you're just establishing this relationship with your client and you're already having to have a conversation about potentially assigning their appointment to someone else. So it's not the best timing.
We've only just met.
We've only just met and you want to get rid of me already. So there's that as well. So the way that so there are some really significant changes to the way assignments work once this Property Occupations Act commences on the 1st of December. So if I've got an existing appointment in place and I want to sell my rent roll, for instance, or I might want to sell my real estate business, so it might be a combination of management agreements and it might also be some sales listings. So it applies across the board. If I want to assign those appointments to, say, you, so I'm getting out or I'm selling my rent roll or selling those appointments, if I want to sell them to you, I won't need to get the client's consent, provided that I'm assigning them to you on the exact same terms.
So the same terms and conditions, it's just a hand across.
That's right.
Wow.
So me as the current owner can sell them to you. However, even though I'm not required under this new act to go and get my client's consent, there are some new obligations for you as the assignee.
Okay.
And what the Act says is within 14 days of the assignment occurring, you need to write to that client, my former client, your new client, and say, hey, I'm Peter Brewer. I've now purchased or taken over this appointment from Antonia. And what you need to do is you need to say to them, I've taken it over on the exact same terms. Here's my contact information. And then you'll need to include a statement which basically lets them know how they can go about terminating the appointment should they wish to do so. And those termination rights are no different to what they would be if I retained that appointment. So it's no more onerous for the assignee. Now, I think there's been some misunderstanding around this in the sense that, again, the Act is designed to take away obstacles. So even though that statutory requirement to get the consent is gone, the commercial reality is that it's highly likely that before you will take on that appointment and pay me money for it, that you're going to do that without first requiring me to actually go out and get the consent. So there's nothing stopping us or you from saying, I want to insert this condition into our contract of sale, and which would then still require me to have to get that consent.
To provide some sort of notifications or at least start the dialogue.
That's right. So because you might say to me, well, you know what, I don't really feel comfortable taking on all of these appointments, and then once the assignment's already occurred, I write to everyone and they feel perhaps aggrieved that Antonia didn't pick the phone up to let them know that that was going to happen, or that I, as the former agent, didn't go through that process. So, but again,
that's commercial reality.
That's commercial.
That's being a smart business person.
That's the distinction between something being required because of a piece of legislation and something being required because it's a commercial, a commercially important matter to a contract of sale.
And so I love that piece. Having been through that process of having sold a significant rent roll, of having to create several hundreds of management agreements and then send those out and then wait for them to come back, which was a painful process to do. And it's a tough gig. To know that that's no formal requirement for that to occur now. It's simply our commercial realities of picking up the phone and saying we've sold part there of the business, or your written correspondence. So much nicer.
Yeah. Yeah, we think so.
Well done. Okay. And so now that's now covered under what's the agreement that people sign? That's the Form 6. That's the new Form 6.
So the Form 6 is the new appointment form, and that will say nothing at all about appointments. I beg your pardon, about assignments rather. So that will be silent. So of course at the moment the appointment forms have that specific provision which requires you to get the client's consent. And even though they sign the appointment form at the end, it actually requires them to specifically initial that particular consent area. And so that will go. That will no longer appear in the new Form 6 appointment form. Okay. And so, in many instances, an assignment won't be necessary. The original agent will take it on, do their job, and that will be the end of it. But it just means that if you do want to sell that rent roll, or you do want to sell your real estate business, or you just want to perhaps assign a certain number of appointments because maybe you're winding down or whatever the case might be, that process is just much easier.
Nice. Now, just for clarity for those watching that, because I know for those that are contemplating selling the business or setting up to sell, people that have agreements pre-December 1, 2014, will they require new agreements moving forward, or is there a transitional process?
Yes. Look, we're taking a fairly conservative view on this. The Property Occupations Act contains transitional provisions. The way the REIQ has interpreted those transitional provisions is that we believe your existing appointments made under Property Agents and Motor Dealers Act will continue to have effect post 1 December. So the transitional provisions make it reasonably clear that those appointments will simply transition over post 1 December. So your 20A, your 21A, whatever the case might be, you don't have to rush out on the evening of 30th of November and frantically try and get all your clients signed onto a new Form 6. But the way we read the Property Occupations Act is that those appointments continue on their current terms.
Gotcha.
So where I'm going with that, Pete, is that if you've got a management agreement in place made under PAMDA, under PAMDA, that wouldn't be able to an assignment wouldn't be able to occur without first getting consent.
Yep.
So our view is that if you've got an existing PAMDA appointment post 1 December and you want to assign it, we're recommending that you do get the consent,
Gotcha.
as would have been required under the Property Agents and Motor Dealers Act.
Gotcha. So it may well be, and I think you alluded to this morning, for those that are looking in the next 1, 2, 3 years, they might look at upgrading their agreements in separate trenches over the next 1, 2 years.
That's right. Look, we don't want to terrify real estate agents. We're not suggesting that you need to rush out and transition all of your existing appointments over to a Form 6, but certainly our recommendation is that you do, perhaps in tranches, get them transitioned over to the new Form 6. There's a bunch of advantages that come with that. Provides you greater clarity, then you know exactly what are the rules. You know that it's a simpler appointment. There's more favourable termination sort of provisions that apply. So there's lots of benefits to transitioning over to the Form 6, but equally at today's roadshow session we had a bunch of agents saying, can we just keep all of our existing 20As if we want to, as they are, as continuing appointments? And the answer is yes.
Absolutely. Cool. That's wonderful. Okay. So I'd like to come back and talk about the Forms 6, 7, 8 other new forms. In particular, I think the Form 6, it actually dispenses with about 7 current forms. Is that right?
So the Form 6 replaces 7 current PAMD appointment forms.
Okay, all right, cool.
And they get replaced by one 4-page document.
Exciting. So that's exciting times because, again, just getting rid of that bureaucracy and making it simple. So we're going to come back and talk about Form 6, 7 and 8.
Lovely.
Look forward to seeing you soon.